And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon, and today I am talking with Robert Poole. Robert, well, first of all, Robert, thank you for being my guest and spending some time with me today.
Yes, absolutely. Honored to be here. Thanks, Michael.
Well, you're welcome. It's going to be great. Robert is a business owner. He's built businesses. He's run businesses. Now he helps business owners really move from, as I say, from operator to owner of that business. And he's going to share with us how he's done that and how he can help you do it, because I know that's an area that a lot of business owners really struggle with. Robert, so runs a company called Total Business Results. We'll talk about all of that. But Robert, tell me, you've had kind of a circuitous route to get here. How did you get doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like a lot of things in life. We don't plan on how it works out. We go down different roads, and sometimes things happen, and we're not expecting it. And
Yeah.
so that was my case certainly. I started a B2B marketing company specializing in cold calling with a business partner of mine over like 22, 23 years ago now. And great business for many, many years. We grew it into a multi-million dollar company from nothing, and it was just things were going great and making a lot of money, and we had many employees and doing all that, and then so it was just a great situation with a business partner. A lot of times that partnerships don't work out always the best. I think the divorce rate's higher than the actual divorce rate for couples, and but I was very fortunate. We really complemented each other, and it really worked out. So it gave me the freedom where I could, I was not the public face of the company, but he kind of did that. But I was all behind the scenes, ran the sales force and the HR and all the other operational stuff, IT, you name it. And he worked with the clients and was the public face, and so it worked out great. I was able to take off time. I took 3 weeks for a honeymoon. I think I called in once, and they said, "Why are you calling?" So I felt well. They don't really need me. So, but so it was a great lifestyle and great for me personally. And then in 2017. It was right after the day after 4th of July, actually, went into the office, and my business partner hadn't come in yet. No big deal. And kind of came in whenever. And his fiance started calling me and said she hadn't heard from him. And I was like, oh, that's just his deal. He doesn't, sometimes he'll go MIA for a while. And, but she kept bugging me. So he wasn't answering his phone. So I finally went over to his house and unfortunately found he had passed away the day before with a heart attack.
Oh my goodness.
And, so, obviously a personal tragedy as well as business. But so suddenly I'm in charge of this multi-million dollar company. And, I found that suddenly all that freedom that I was enjoying, I no longer had that. I was doing his work, my work. I was there at 4 a.m. until 7 p.m,
Mm.
7 days a week. And I didn't know what to do with the company. I was thrust into this role, and I realized that I'd been tied to the company. I'd lost my freedom, so to speak. So I realized that I was not going to be able to keep this up. My family was suffering all of a sudden, and I said, how can I keep doing this? And so I realized that I was really in that operator mode where you're tied to your business, and something that I was early on in my business, but we made that transition over the years. And so I realized I got to consciously change that. That direction of what I'm doing and figure this out. So it took me a couple of years to kind of figure out how to make that transition from being an operator that's tied to the business to being an owner, which when you're not necessarily required to be there for the business. And so I started doing that, and then I started sharing that with some of our clients, and it really took off. And so that's where I am today. I help other small business owners. We still have our main company, but I do a lot of coaching and advice, primarily around that topic, actually, of how you make that transition, because I've found, for most business owners run into that at some point in their business career. And it's
Yeah.
definitely a hot button. So that's what I've been doing these days and kind of how I got here.
That's very cool, man. I love that whole story. Thank you for sharing and being transparent. And yeah, you're right, because business owners, we start a company with passion and vigor and dreams. And a lot of our dreams have something to do with not just serving people well, but having that free time, having the vacations with our family. But we wake up one day realizing that, as I would call it, we're locked in prison
Hmm.
because, as you say, you're tied to your business. And unfortunately, they don't know what to do or how to get it off because there are a lot of books written on marketing and sales and all. There aren't a ton really written on this topic. And so business owners, they're just like staring in the darkness going, what do I do? Um, and you kind of hit that, and you said, I love what you said. Yours was a 2-year transition. This is not an overnight thing, but there is a pathway. Talk a little bit about the aha moment, the mindset that business owners need to go, yeah, this isn't right. I have a different vision, but there's this big gap in the middle. Is that kind of what goes on in the head of an entrepreneur?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for me, it was when I realized that as a business owner, a true owner, my job is not what I thought it was. We think that when we get into business, well, I'm going to do all these things and I'm going to be intimately involved and, I'm managing the people and, doing all these tasks, if you will. And the problem is that that's an operator, but nobody,
Right.
like you mentioned, Michael, it's not really taught out there. Nobody focuses on it, but an owner is actually somebody who focuses on, you know, the big picture of the company, the strategy, how to manage all those resources. What direction of your company are you going in? Who are you going to serve? How are you going to serve them? Building that team of people around you. It's all those type of things. And let's face it, a lot of us when we get into business as ownership, that's not why we're getting into it. We think we're getting into it to be an operator. We call ourselves business owners, but
Right.
so the first is a mindset to realize what is our true job, and our true job is not, necessarily selling one-on-one. Maybe you have to
Right.
do it at the beginning, but eventually that should be somebody else should be doing that. It's not, doing administrative. It's not playing with Excel spreadsheets. It's not, what I'm getting at, it's not task oriented.
Right.
So we have to make that transition in the mentality, which is what you're talking about. I think the biggest thing and the first step in that transition.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what is my true job? Because even after you make the transition and you're what I would call the CEO
Mhm.
and the company's running, I still have a job in my business, but it's not that day to day, 8 to 5, whatever. It's a lot of thinking and strategy and all of that. And that in itself is a skill set that has to be learned because that's a different skill set than being an operator, whether you're a financial advisor or a plumber. It doesn't matter. You got
Yeah.
to think differently. So let's talk about when business owners, I mean, they're struggling. You mentioned a few of them. They have no time. They're working. I mean, I've seen the badges, right? I worked 70 hours a week last week. I am so sorry. I never want to wear that badge. My family suffers. I've got stress in life. I mean, the finances aren't where they should be. My friend, all of those. If you're struggling with those things, if that resonates with you, you might want to really dive in and listen here because my next question. So we talked about mindset of just realizing that I need to lead my company, and that means that I'm going to be doing something different than what I probably thought of.
Mhm.
But I don't have to do it alone because you've got to build a good team. Let's talk a little bit about that process or the pathway of going from operator to owner. What are some of the milestone steps?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's really four things in my mind, but we just kind of talked about the first one, which is the mindset and focusing on you as the business owner, because we forget that the business is only going to grow to the extent that we do.
Yeah.
If we don't have the skill set, because we're traditionally not taught that, as you said, Michael, it's not out there. Then we have to learn how to be that person. So that's number one. How do we be that? Number two is what you're talking about, the critical part of building a team. And, a lot of people, when they hear that, if they're a solopreneur or whatever, an author, speaker, coach, whatever, they think, well, that doesn't really apply to me. I don't need employees or whatever. But I would say that, it doesn't matter what size your company is. If you don't have a support system around you, it's just like in life. Um, we're as human beings, we can't do everything ourselves. And we shouldn't. It's very easy to get ourselves into it. It's easier for me to do it, than tell somebody how to do it. Um, but I think the key is building that support system, and whether they're employees, they could be contractors. It doesn't really matter. You can still create that team around you, And that's what allows you to leverage, because you are always going to be limited in how much you can grow by yourself. And so, everybody thinks, well, okay, great, I got to have a team or whatever. And I thought that for many years. We hired employees and did all that, and I did it the wrong way. Unfortunately, I come from a military background, and it tends to be very top down in the leadership, and people have to do what you tell them. They have orders. Whereas in the real world, the business world we're in, people don't have to do what you say. They can go find another job. So what I didn't understand as a young man and younger in business was that we have to build a team of people who have a vested interest in the company and what we're trying to do. It's not about necessarily having equity in the company. I mean, that's great, but what I'm talking about is I like to focus on how do we create a team of, quote, mini owners, people
Mm,
that think about the company as if it was theirs. And when people start getting that buy-in, and when you develop that culture, wow, that will take you so much further than trying to do it yourself or trying to, have a heavy-handed management style. And so building that team, and it took me a while to figure this out, how to find the right people, how to create that culture that attracts them. And quite frankly, how to get rid of the wrong people
yeah,
without ruining your reputation, or, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know about you, Michael, but, I think that has to be the worst thing in business for me,
Ooh,
at least, is firing people.
yeah,
Just because I know it's people depend on it. It's their living, it's their family, so
yeah,
I was at a very hard time with that. And it took me a while to figure out how to do that effectively. And
yeah,
so there's a lot of things to it, but I think, your original question about team building, I think that's a critical part of it. And then the last two things, that was a long, answer,
that's
but
okay.
just quickly, the last two things is I think you have to build a culture of sales and marketing in your company. And not just with, if you have a salesperson, salespeople, marketing people, whatever, everybody always silos themselves into that. But if you have somebody who's answering the phone or doing some sort of administrative work, they're in IT, whatever, they need to understand basic principles of sales and marketing.
Yeah,
And they need to understand basic people skills of how to deal with people, how to understand what the marketing and sales people are doing. So educating everybody on that, and then of course what everybody thinks about when they think about operator to owner, which is systems. And I don't mean necessarily automation, because there's a difference between automations and systems.
right.
So systems, is about creating things that can be procedures that can be scaled to whatever you want it to be. So it's really those four things: focusing on you as the owner, becoming that CEO, like you said, building a team, permeating sales and marketing throughout your company, and then creating systems to support all that. So very long answer, but that's kind of the four things that I found that really made a difference for me.
Yeah, no, great answer, by the way, and I don't mind the length because, we're not everybody tells me, "Well, people have no attention span today," and I disagree. When I'm interested in a topic, buddy, I will be with you for a long time, and this is such an intriguing topic, and the way you just laid it out is really good because you gotta yeah, you've gotta have the mindset first that I need something different than what I am. I need to be that CEO. Okay, but how am I gonna get there? Well, okay, I need to have the vision, but I need to build a team. I love your culture aspect. We could have a whole nother podcast on that.
Mhm.
And then the culture of sales and marketing. I've got a one of our clients is the number one realtor in Dayton, Ohio, Remax, and big guy. And he says the lady who answers the phone, she's responsible to bring enough business every year to pay for her salary.
Mhm.
Everybody is a salesperson in his organization because they have that mentality that they're always serving and they understand people skills and sales and marketing. I thought that was brilliant what you just said. And then systems. Yeah, we haven't been around each other a lot, but I preach systems all the time. My son's my chief operating officer, and he builds systems that are replicatable. That if one employee leaves, somebody else can come in and keep the system running. And that's so important. Again, nobody teaches this stuff, right?
Mhm.
And so that's why what you do and what you bring to the table is so very valuable. Um, let's pivot a little bit. So because you just kind of landed all that. If a owner's out there and they're like, okay, yeah, that's I kind of am resonating with this, but how do you work with people? Is it a a one-on-one? Is it a group? Is it long-term, short-term? What are some of the options of because business owners are in different spots, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, and I think it does vary. There's no because of what you just said, that business owners are in different spots. I always look at it this way. Somebody will say, "Well, how long does this transition take?" And I say, "Well, is your business a speedboat or is it an ocean liner?" For me, it was an ocean liner, and an ocean liner, it's going to take a little time to make that 180-degree switch. Versus a speedboat, bam, you can very quickly. So in my case, it took a couple of years, but it could be very quickly within a few months, depending on the size of your business and where you are out in those four areas, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think people question, how do I get started? And so to answer your question, we do group coaching. I do some limited one-on-one. Time is limited, but I do some limited one-on-one. And so it kind of depends on the client. And some people are in the position where they'd rather just, from an educational standpoint, they just want to learn, watching YouTube videos. And, I've got lots of stuff, that way and podcast, which is dormant right now, but a lot of great stuff on there and, social media and all that good stuff. So, it's really those three channels, the individual coaching, the group, type of stuff, and then the more self-education type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's typically how I work with clients.
And that's good. And so I think one of my first things is go start listening to his podcast. Maybe check out YouTube, and get used to him, and then reach out and have the conversation, because this kind of a transition is really not something you want to try to do on your own. It it just isn't. You're going to hit so many brick walls that um, Robert has probably already busted through, and he has solutions. And so it's one of those things that as a business owner talks with you, let's say in the group coaching program, they're listening to a YouTube video, right? They join your group coaching program. They're there with some other entrepreneurs who are all like-minded. That's the thing I love about group coaching, heading in the same direction. And the problem you're facing has probably been faced by one or two or three people in that group. Is that what you find when you lead these groups and help these entrepreneurs?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's one of the most powerful thing. I'm a big believer in masterminds and group coaching and sort of a combination of the two, if you will.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like being around other business owners because entrepreneurship can be lonely. Let's face it,
Yeah.
and but like you said, Michael, there are always people who are going through what you are going through. There are people who have gone through what you're going through, and that is the quickest way to learn how to change is by modeling and working with other people. I'm a huge believer in modeling and mentorship, and
Yeah.
it's much faster than the trial and error. The school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
I mean that's got its benefits, but hey,
And
why? If
and
you don't
even
have to.
honestly, listening to podcasts in YouTube are great, but they don't give you that interaction, and it's not as easy to say, "Hey, Robert, here's my question. How do I do this?" And Robert says, "Hey, that's a great question. Here's your answer." It's going to take a lot more time if you're out there just educating. Getting educated is a great starting point, but if you're a business owner and you are just sitting there going, "Wow, where's Robert been all my life?" Right? Or at least in the last 3 years when I've been really struggling. And you're starting to see the light of day that I need to transition. I need to run my company like a business, like a I always relate it to like a Chick-fil-A franchise or a McDonald's franchise. The franchise owner usually isn't in the business. He's in his office running the business, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's how we need to at least think about our businesses. So if you're flipping burgers right now in your business, you need to start thinking about having somebody else flip the burgers and you run the company. Um, but that's a challenging transition if you don't have somebody like Robert that you can use as an asset, as a resource, as a peer, because he's a business owner, but also a coach to guide you because he's done and he's helped other people do it. Um, where Robert, I mean, we could go on for hours because this is just intriguing to me. Um, where can somebody go to get more information about you? You mentioned a couple, but specifically, what would be like their next best step?
Of course, I'm on social media. You can look me up under the Robert Poole, Poole with an E. or LinkedIn or whatever, reach out to me. But I always, for a show like yours and your listeners are high quality listeners, Michael, so I'll just put it out there. You can email me directly and I'd be happy to speak with you. And it'll point you in the right direction. It might be what's most appropriate for your business right now, where you're at.
Hmm.
Just give you some advice and point you in the right direction. But so you can email me directly at Robert at operator2owner.net. And so it's Robert at operator2to owner.net. And we can set up a time to chat, and I can answer any of your questions and point you in the right direction.
That's awesome. I will make sure that we have that in the show notes as well, because entrepreneurs, we're busy, especially if you're not running the business. If you're the operator, you're out doing something, you're meeting with somebody, and you're probably listening to this on your phone as you're driving back and forth or to an appointment. So no worries, I'm going to have that information in the show notes so that after you listen to this, and I would really recommend you at the end of this spot, go back and re-listen to this, because you only got about 5% of what Robert was sharing. Go back and listen to this episode a couple of times, and then reach out to Robert and have that conversation. And if he can help you, he'll let you know. If he can't, he'll let you know. But it's always great to talk with people who've been where I want to go. Right? A lot of times for vacations, right? It's like, dude, I'm thinking about going to Costa Rica. Have you ever been there? Oh yeah, we loved it. It was great. You should go here. That is so much better than going there blind. Same thing with running a business and moving from operator to owner. You can go there with your blinders on, but it's going to be a hard fought battle, and you're going to have some scars. I think you can get there easier and faster with more joy and a more successful business at the end, dare I say, because you're going to have done it the proper way, following those 4 steps that you talked about, Robert. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I'm a big believer in modeling, and it's much easier to accelerate anything in life by finding somebody who's been there and done that themselves versus the academic theoretical knowledge, So
Yeah.
absolutely, Michael.
Awesome. All right, Robert Poole, thank you for, or should I say the Robert Poole? I love that. Thank you for being my guest on Experts Speak. I will capture all the information, and thanks for your passion for business owners and helping them really move from that operator role up to the owner role so that they can actually enjoy the benefits of being an entrepreneur, a business owner, and escaping those time traps, enjoying the time with their family, and living the life that they really want. So, Robert, thank you for what you do, and thanks for being my guest on Experts Speak.
Thank you. It was an honor to be here.